Derek,
Yeah.
thanks so much for being here.
No problem.
Appreciate you. We're gonna go through Derek's truck. Derek is a RV transporter and does a ton of miles. And what's the truck at right now?
It's 923,000, right around there.
Give
Maybe
or take.
922.8 or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, awesome. And when did you buy the truck?
February 21st, 2017.
So right when this thing came out, pretty much, you got one and
Yes.
we're running
Well,
it.
yes. I mean, it came out the summer before, I think, or the fall before.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have a 2011 as well with 725,000 miles on it. And when I bought this, 6 days later, a glow plug broke in that other truck while I was preparing to leave to get a camper because I wasn't using this to tow yet.
Right.
And it got ingested into the engine and broke some push rods.
Oh no. Yeah. So then how did you get into RV transport from being a corrections officer, and you said you did a little like local hauling?
Yeah. So when I left doing corrections, my snow removal business was really busy, so that's why I left that. And I got into the hauling, landscape supplies, in the spring, fall, and summer, when it wasn't snowing.
Right.
And so I could keep the trucks working.
Right.
And that business ended up phasing out, not my end, but their end.
Right.
So I was looking for something to do in the summer.
Gotcha.
And my son did kart racing.
Yeah.
And I met somebody in kart racing who was doing this.
Right.
And he said, "Why don't you try doing that?" And I was like, "Well, I'll give it a try." That
Give
was
it a go.
So I met him in the summer of 2011, and in the February, March of 2012 is when I started.
Wow.
With the same transport company I've been with the whole time.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. Well, I appreciate all that background, and I think I just really want to hear what you do to maintain this truck. So I think we'll kind of like start through some things. Like we can start at the top with fluids and filters, which is kind of the basics, because that's obviously what and I'm sure a lot of folks watching are going to want to know what exactly you've done to get a truck to 922,000. So yeah, let's start. I mean, fluids and filters. What are you doing?
To me also too, I'm glad you said that. Fuel filters and fluids are definitely the most important thing, other than how you drive it, of course.
Okay.
Without a doubt. So the most important thing I've done with this is a bypass oil filter.
Okay.
That is without a doubt, I think I would never own another internal combustion engine ever. It doesn't matter what it is, without one of these filters in. If I'm going to keep it. Doing this work, as you know, you don't go through a truck every year.
Right.
You're going to get a truck and you're going to keep it, and you're going to run it right into the ground. Take care of it.
Right.
You take care of it, it's going to take care of you.
Right, because the longer it lasts, the better your profit margins are.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like as soon as you get it paid off or whatever, then everything after that, you just maintenance and it's all gravy.
Right. Right.
So, but I did the bypass filter. I did some research, when I was checking out different bypass filters and whatnot. And the reason I didn't even know about, let me back up. I didn't even know about bypass filters, but when I was looking at ways to make my truck last longer, that kept coming up.
Okay.
So then I started looking at them, and I was like, oh, this will make my truck last longer and it'll help me save money. And of course, doing this type of work, everything you can save, it's increase your profit, of course, with any type of business. So, with oil testing, I know in some of your previous videos with Lake and stuff, you do oil analysis, and which is fantastic. I mean, I've gone 30,000 miles sometimes without an oil change.
Wow.
Because the testing says it's fine. And as he says, it's not speculation.
Right.
It's data. It's real life data.
Right.
My engine that I had in this is a new engine, was featured in Dave's Auto Center, one of his videos.
Right.
And if you see the inside of that engine, then you'll be like, that can't be real. But it's 100% real. I mean.
Right. And you got 892 out of that original engine. That was original engine and original transmission,
Yep.
892,000
Yep.
miles.
And original CP4 pump.
Man,
too.
yeah, that is crazy. So I mean, talking about the CP4, so it sounds like, well, what's your normal protection plan for the CP4? I know you'd mentioned kind of before we started the video that you ran the Ford additive, and
Yep.
then something else you also put in. What were you running
Right.
for your additive mix?
Okay, so
Diesel fuel additive.
not the whole life of this truck, not a drop of fuel has been in it without the Ford additive.
Okay.
It tested really good. I'll provide you with that information after if you'd like, so you can see. But it tested really good in the top 5 of all the additives, and this was 10 years ago or whatever, before I had this truck even.
Right.
And and in the winter I would keep that additive, but just put an anti-gel additive add to it, so I would be overdosing, and I overdose ananyway.
Right.
It says I think it's like 4 ounces or 5 ounces for every 25 gallons, and I would
You just
put,
round up.
I way up, because the tank in the back's 118 gallons, and if it was empty, I would put 2 bottles, so 40 ounces, and then I would put 1 bottle in the 50-gallon tank.
Right.
And I just overtreat it, and people would say, "Oh, you're wasting too much money. You're wasting a lot of money doing a lot extra," and I was like, "Well, I mean, my CP4 pump has lasted 900,000 miles, so I guess I'll stick with it." Can't be
bad for it. Yeah.
So, and then the company that oil filter company I use, Insane Diesel, they also make an additive now, as well as oil. So once they came out with their oil and additive, I started using that. It's called Lorenzo's oil, but I add it to the Ford stuff. I won't stop using the Ford stuff. There's something good about it.
I forgot to ask, like, what are your oil change intervals normally? So you said you went 30,000 and the oil was fine on one interval. What's like normal for you then?
15.
15,000.
Yeah, I started doing the 30 when I knew the okay, so engine. You spend as much time in the vehicles as we do.
Yeah.
When you hear things, things don't sound right, you just know it.
Right.
And so I was like, at 900,000 miles, I'm sure my run is coming to an end.
Right.
So I started pushing my oil changes. So when I started, just like a lot of people that I'm sure are going to watch this will be like, oh, 3 to 5,000 miles, have to change. So of course that was in my head.
Right.
And so when I put the filter on, I was like, I change it at 5,000 and test the oil. Change it at another 5,000, test. So I did it to get kind of a baseline.
Right.
And then I upped it to 10.
Okay.
Between intervals. And then I upped it to 15. And at 15, I'm like, you know what? I'm playing with house money. I'm saving 2 oil changes.
Right.
So there's $400 right there I'm saving.
Right.
Okay, which is $400 a month.
Right.
So
that's crazy.
Why push it? I'll just change the oil and the filters.
But the longest you ever did was 30,000 miles.
27,
okay.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And it still tested okay. I mean, it wasn't like it was at 15.
Kind of oil? What kind of oil was that again?
Okay, so I started using Mobile One Delvac 1540.
Okay.
ESP, the gray bottle. For some reason they have Delvac and it's not synthetic and it's in a black bottle, but it says Delvac on it. The same. I don't understand it, but anyway.
Interesting.
And then with Lucas Oil, which I stopped using Lucas Oil when Lake Speed said I was wasting my money.
Yeah.
But anyway, and then at around 700 to 750,000, I started using the Lorenzo. Insane Diesel sells Lorenzo's oil.
Yeah.
Same 1540. I started using that. So
what are you doing then for like fuel filters? I know you said earlier we were chatting, you're still running the OEM plastic upper and then the lower water separator filter. What are your intervals for those?
I change those anytime I change my oil or filters. So for whatever reason, I change the fuel filters. Okay. Unless when I pushed it to 27, 25,000, I changed it to 15,000.
Okay.
I didn't. But if I have a...
So it's like oil change or 15,000.
So as you're familiar with, I had upper and lower oil pan leak.
Right.
And that was recently after an oil change, like several thousand miles, whatever.
Right.
So when I did that, of course you get new oil.
Right.
And filters. So I did my fuel filters just because it's easier for me to keep track of if I just keep everything on the schedule. Same with transmission and coolant. I do those every 50,000 miles no matter what. And I don't flush anything. I drain and fill. The transmission, I take the pan, drop the pan, and change the filter every time. And if I have a coolant leak or something, or I need to replace a radiator, and the coolant's going to be drained, and it's been 20,000 miles, then I'm doing the transmission too at the same time, you know, to keep on the same 50,000 schedule. So
yeah. Gotcha. What about so do you do transfer case too when you do the transmission? What about like your transfer case and your differentials?
That one I could be a little bit better on.
Okay.
No,
that's
I
fair.
I can't remember the last time I did the transfer case.
Okay.
Or the front differential. I've done it. I just can't remember when. I recently did the rear. I put a Banks diff cover and changed that.
Okay.
And I hadn't done that in a long time.
Yeah.
Those are things that I have neglected a little bit.
Yeah. But I mean, you
they still look brand new on the inside.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and you said out of your original trans, so you had when your original motor went at 892, you also did the trans just because you're like,
I was going to save the labor.
Yeah.
And it was getting tired. I could feel it. It wasn't slipping, but you could just tell, you know, you can just tell.
Did they do the transfer case then too when they did the trans? Was it transfer case and engine?
Just the transmission.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, even though you don't know the last time you did the transfer case, it's obviously not hurting it too bad if it's got 923.
Right, and the full drive still works. And
yeah,
so
that's all you can ask for.
It didn't work well a couple of years ago when we first moved, but come to find out, all the seals and the inner axle seals in the front had to all be redone.
Yeah.
That was a big job.
Yeah.
Sorry if I'm jumping around a little bit,
No,
but
you're
the
good,
wheel bearings I've done each side probably half a dozen times.
Half a dozen. Okay. And what do you get for mileage on average out of each set of wheel
I don't even
bearings?
know how to keep. I never kept track of that.
But you don't do them at a certain mileage. You just wait until they go and then you just replace them.
Yeah, and I know I sound like a broken record, but you hear things and you know, like one time I went to the dealer and I was like, oh yeah, the right front wheel bearing's going too. Okay, we'll check it out. We're doing the oil change.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. I said, no, it's going. It's not right. It's going. No, it's fine. It's fine. Okay. And it was a warranty part because that had been done within, because Ford has a good, 2-year unlimited mile warranty on their parts and labor.
Right.
So I leave to go get another camper, and I come back. I was back, a few days later, and I was like, you need to replace it. It's going. And they brought it in. They're like, oh yeah, it's going. I'm like, can you just listen to somebody that
listen to it the first time? Yeah.
I'm not a tech. I'm not a mechanic, but I know the sounds this is supposed to make and the ones that it's not supposed to make.
I mean, if you've driven this thing 923, you've probably spent more time around Power Strokes than most techs have, just because you've been in it so much. I mean, that's a lot of time.
Yeah. So as far, I know you asked me some questions before about things I've replaced on the truck. And things on the truck I've replaced, I'm going to take all the suspension stuff out. We don't have to, if that's okay with you, we don't need to talk about that because that's all been done. Multiple sets of shocks, tie rod ends, U-joints, ball joints,
do you
all
just
that stuff.
run like the OEM?
Yeah, just the OEM.
Shocks?
Yep. I've only done those twice, I think.
Okay.
Or the originals and one other set.
Okay. I'm just looking at my list of question notes too to make sure. Okay, so and you said you've been through like multiple sets of like the tie rod ends and like track bar,
ball joints, all that fun stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and you said there's not really any rhyme or reason when those fail. Like how many sets of ball joints have you done?
I don't
remember.
Because some of them are warranty too. Like a lot of them will fail, which I don't want anything to fail ever. But please fail within the 2 years after I do it because. I can just because that's easy. Because I like to go to my dealer, Grapponi Ford we talked about in Bow, New Hampshire. But I like to go there. But if it's a warranty item, I'll just go to any Ford dealer. It doesn't matter, and so that and I'm on the road so much. I only go back east, occasionally, and usually, when I need service, I go back. I always plan a trip to go back and get service But I don't hope. If something's going to fail, I hope it happens within the warranty period so I can just get it fixed anywhere when I'm on the road.
No, that's natural, yeah. But what's your wheel and tire setup?
Just the stock 20-inch rims for the Platinum. The tires are just stock size 275 with 65/20.
Okay.
Right now I have there's the Toyo HTs on, like a highway tire. This is nice and quiet. Good ride.
Yeah, and what do you get for mileage out of your tires?
100K on average at least. Usually a little more. Same with brakes.
100K for brakes
Yeah.
and tires. So how often are you rotating your tires then?
I rotate them. I monitor it and I rotate them. So usually techs will tell you to put your best tires in the front.
Right.
Okay. But hauling campers, all the weight's in the rear. So I always have my best tires in the rear. So anytime
Interesting.
when I go get service, they say, do you want to rotate? I say, I want the best tires in the rear. So if the best tires are already in the rear, then I don't rotate. But sometimes they're not, so then they rotate.
Okay. Interesting. So you
Or
do
if
it
there's
based
funky
on,
wear.
Right.
You know.
Interesting. So if you're getting funky wear on a rear tire, then what? So you move it to the front then? Is that kind
I
of
just go with their recommendation.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow, and 100K out of tires. How did you come to decide on the Toyo HTs? They're just something you tried and you
Yeah, well,
liked it?
I had some Michelins before, and I really like the Toyo AT3, the all-terrain tires.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
really nice tires, and I was like, oh, why don't I try their highway tire? Because I was using the Michelin Defender MS, I think it was called.
Okay.
Or,
Yeah.
And
M/S.
and they were
yeah.
nice, but you know they're a lot more expensive, the Michelins than Toyos.
They are, yeah.
So I tried these, and I really like them. They seem to be really nice. They're really good in the rain, and they're pretty good in the snow too. Actually, you know, there's got some nice grooves in there, and sheds the slush and everything pretty well.
Yeah. Nice, like the.
I mean, they're not really attractive, you know, so to speak.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
you don't get that nice truck look, but whatever.
Yeah, the aesthetics don't pay the bills, though.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's awesome. No, I mean, and 100K out of a set of tires is incredible, and yeah, I mean they look like they have really nice tread blocks on them, so definitely can't complain there. What else? Like, what else would you like to add on the maintenance stuff?
Maintenance stuff.
Before we
Well,
move
there were
on?
some people, if you don't mind me just putting my own thing here, there were some people on that video with Dave's that were like, you know, full of you know what, and doesn't have this many miles. And,
Yeah.
Oh,
basically, they're saying you were a bullshitter. That
yeah,
didn't have
basically.
enough miles.
Yeah. So some of the other things I did. So my exhaust manifold's bolts broke once, and the hot exhaust melted my crossover tube gasket. So that had to all come apart, the upper end, to do that.
Yeah.
I've done the upper oil pan twice. Second time was under warranty.
Yeah.
I added a new rear cover the second time because a dealer, I had to do the upper oil pan at not my regular dealer.
Okay.
Because it was get to the point where it was leaking really bad. I mean, I was going with the whole seeping thing, like, you know,
like
kind of
what my truck's doing right now.
So I kind of went with that for a while until it was leaving puddles, and then I was like, I gotta take care of this.
Yeah.
And so where I took care of it, when they put it back together, they stripped so there's threads in the rear cover.
Okay.
And when you lock those down, it locks the upper oil pan down. Mm-hmm. So they stripped the threads.
Oh.
When they did the original repair. So when it was leaking because that's where it was leaking, where it wasn't tight, where it wasn't taut.
Where the threads were stripped.
Yep. So when I
grief.
got it, so my dealer warrantied the upper oil pan, but they wouldn't warranty because they didn't strip it. They wouldn't warranty that cover. And of course they didn't know until they put it all back together.
Right.
So then they had to take it apart and re-clean it. So it was an extra 5 hours of labor.
Oh.
And so anyway, but the dealer that did
bad.
it they're working with me, and they give me they were going to send me a check, and I was like, why don't you just give me a credit at your dealer? So
Right.
I got a credit. I'm working off that now.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
But yeah, so I've done that. My original turbo and the injectors lasted to 675,000 miles.
Wow.
So I replaced
Original turbo.
Yeah, I replaced those at that point. The injectors I didn't need to replace, but they were doing the turbo, so I figured why not?
Yeah. Freshen up a
Yeah.
little bit.
So I just did that at the same time.
Okay.
A bunch of normal, just little stuff. I mean, I've been through several radiators, 8 windshields.
Yeah.
Other than regular maintenance stuff, other than that, not that I can't think of anything. Brakes, of course, and brakes and rotors. I think another important maintenance item too that a lot of people overlook is I try to do a caliper service every 25 to 40,000 miles.
Yeah.
Take apart the calipers, grease the pins, all that stuff.
The slide
A lot of
pins.
people overlook that and just do it when they need brakes.
Yeah.
But
No,
I
and
think that's why my brakes last 100,000 miles is because I do it
is.
every 25,
Well,
35,000 miles.
my fronts, I got 120 or 125 out of my fronts
Yeah.
at like the rotors, and I think I had to do pads once. But my brother's, he's a mechanic and says the same thing. He likes to do slide pins every 50,000 is what he tries to do. So that's what I've been doing on mine, and definitely because they get all stuck, you know, with the brake dust.
And then
gunk,
the pads will
wear unevenly.
Yeah, they're grabbing too much.
Right.
And they'll, you know, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the dealer recommends 25,000. So
really, for slide pins?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Well, that's
so
cool.
I try to do a little bit longer. If I happen to be in at 25 for something else,
right,
and they have time, I'll do it.
just do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is like a really pretty easy service to do too.
If my brakes are getting low, not low to the point of replacing, but I'm going to need to do it within a month,
right,
and I'm due for one of those services, I won't do it. I'll wait until I need the brakes because they're
Right.
going to do that when you get the brakes. So
right.
I'll save that because it's, you know, I don't do any of my own maintenance like you do. So, and that's a costly one. I mean, it's $200 and something per axle
Yeah,
to do that, and you know,
it's
so
not cheap.
but,
No. Well, why don't we change gears
Okay.
and take a look under the hood if you're up for that.
Yep.
All right, so we talked about kind of what maintenance you've done on this thing. Walk us through, like, what aftermarket stuff do you have in here? I mean, I see you still have the stock plastic intake, and obviously this is the newer engine.
The only aftermarket thing for the previous engine was that oil filter.
Wow.
Which is the best. I'm telling you, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but if anybody doesn't run right out and get one of these and they want their truck to last a long time, there's nothing I can do to help you. Because to me, that is the number one thing why this truck lasted that long. Other than, you know, me driving with a level head.
Right.
You know, I don't drive it like a race truck. This obviously was also aftermarket for the life of the truck.
S&B.
S&B.
Cold side, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So, but now, with the new engine, I've added the bigger degas tanks from Mishimoto radiator, and my newest favorite addition is the Mishimoto transmission cooler. That thing is the cat's ass.
So it's the pan, right? It's a deeper pan, or did you actually get
No,
a cooler?
yeah, it's right here.
Oh wow!
It goes right across the front. And
so in front of the stock radiator.
My transmission runs 50 degrees cooler.
Wow.
That did. My coolant is 10. It runs about 190.
Okay.
And when I'm towing it, maybe 192, 193. And with my old engine before the lifters failed, it was my oil was at 245.
Wow.
My transmission was at 225, and same with my coolant was 225.
Wow.
And now my coolant's running in the low 190s. My oil, when I'm not towing, is in the low 190s. And my, what was the other one? Transmission. Oh yeah, transmission. When I'm not towing, is in 140.
Wow.
And it was, you know, in the 200. When I wasn't towing, okay, so those numbers I gave you before were towing. So when I wasn't towing, my coolant was 196. My oil was 200, 198.
Okay.
And my transmission was, you know, 195, 190. So, you know, somewhere close to where the coolant was.
Okay. Wow.
They were all close to each other when I wasn't towing.
Right.
But this stuff makes a big deal. The Mishimoto degas tanks and the radiator, just those, I think it's 3 gallons maybe extra coolant.
Okay, so you're running a lot of extra coolant in it.
A lot of coolant, and the radiator is there's so much more. I think it's like 34 or 37% more surface area on the radiator than the stock Ford. And it's got a lifetime warranty, which I will be utilizing because you can't see it on the camera, but I'm standing on a piece of cardboard right now because I'm leaking some coolant in Harry's driveway. So but they're sending me one next week, and I'll get that put in and
nice.
Be on my merry way. But
so you got the Mishimoto stuff, the trans cooler, radiator, the degas tanks, and the intake, and that's it
for now.
Right?
And the the Banks diff cover.
Yeah, right.
That was a recent thing too. So
right.
But then, you know, once I can, I'm gonna do the pusher intake, and I'm probably gonna do all the pusher piping.
Yeah, I mean, Derek, you've this truck, especially on the outside, when you pull in, I was blown away by how, clean it looks. Like, it doesn't look bad at all. I know it's, it's highway miles, but still, you're towing, you're running a lot of miles, you're running hard. It's really awesome just to see how well taken care of this thing is.
Yeah, I thank you. I appreciate that. I don't want to hurry things up, but I can't wait till summer. Not for the reason most people think, but I want to tow, like towing across Nebraska or up I-25 into Wyoming, with my old engine in that sometimes it's 100 degrees and going up those hills, I would be doing 30 and an 80.
Right.
And I want to see how all this stuff, the new coolant,
performs.
The transmission performs in the heat.
So you touched on it briefly there and a little bit earlier when we were talking, but driving habits.
Mm-hmm.
What, you even just mentioned like you slow down, you were slowing down when it got too hot to like 30 going up hills. What are your driving habits like with these trucks when you're towing?
Well, when I'm towing, I'm a big cruise control guy.
Okay.
So I set it on cruise. This, of course, is a little fancier of a truck. So, I have the radar and the cruise control. So I set it at 65 when I'm towing and go.
Okay.
If there's a steep hill, I will manually downshift to 5th gear.
Okay.
Because I don't want it to,
Lug.
when you slam that, when it slams right down,
right.
when it shifts down,
right.
I don't shift it down, and I don't want it to shift down after I've dropped off the speed I have it set at.
Okay.
So when I know a hill's coming up, I'll shift it down while I'm still at speed, because then it doesn't
so
hit like a hammer.
Down a gear.
Yeah,
right.
It doesn't hit like a hammer.
Interesting.
And it just kind of just a quick little shift.
Yeah.
But if I'm set at 65 and I'm doing 58 and then I downshift it manually, it's like wham. And it really, it shifts really
it's
hard.
It's tough on the trans, yeah.
So I do that to try to save things. Going through hills, like towing back east towards Vermont, or in through Vermont, there's a lot of steep hills there, and it's 50 mile an hour speed limit with some curves, but I'll do 35 up those hills.
Okay.
Not because the truck's limited at that, because I want to save it. I'm getting a little wiser in my old age, so I figure, let's make it, it was $37,000 to do this with the transmission and the Mishimoto stuff. And so it's, I don't want to do that again anytime soon.
No, yeah, I don't blame you. That's a lot.
I'll do it when I was something to build a Harry.
Yeah.
Thanks, bud.
Yeah. I guess just to wrap, what advice would you give someone who wants to put a lot of miles on a vehicle?
Honestly, I know I'm sounding like a bit of an infomercial, but bypass oil filter would be number one.
Yeah.
Number one. And I encourage you to research about it. The Insane Diesel bypass filter, I researched them when I was trying to figure out, and from all the other ones out there, it filters down to 1 micron, which is 10 times smaller than a strand of hair.
Yeah.
10 times.
There's
crazy. Other ones out there now that filter to 2 or 3 microns, which is good. That's not bad.
Right.
But why would you want not bad?
Right.
Why wouldn't you want fantastic?
Fantastic, yeah. Yeah.
So that's the number one thing, and then never neglect all your other filters in changing your fluids. That's the biggest thing, other than your driving habits. Don't drive it like a race car.
Right.
And I would anybody who buys a diesel, well, nowadays, anybody who buys a diesel, I hope they're not, people are going to do what they're going to do, but if I wasn't doing what I'm doing, I wouldn't have a diesel truck.
Right.
It's an extra $20,000 and all this extra maintenance.
Right.
But there's people that I know that buy these trucks that get rid of them every 2 years, 3 years. I'm like, I don't understand that.
Why?
Yeah, I don't understand that. But hopefully people that watch your channel for the maintenance aspect of all this stuff, they know that, you're making this investment, you want it to last and last and last.
Right.
I'm going to run this truck until if I have holes in the, I'm stopping like Fred Flintstone. I'm going to run it into the ground.
Right.
I'm going for 2 million miles. That's my next 2 million miles without changing the motor. I'm hoping. I'd love to get to that.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, there's something else you said to me too. I think when we were talking on the phone a while ago, where you felt too, if you're going to buy a diesel, you got to run it.
Yes.
It's like if it's gonna sit, that's emissions or no, like if it's sitting, it's bad for it.
Yep. No, these things want to be run. So I quick little story. My first diesel truck was a 2003 6-liter F350.
Okay.
And I used it to plow with, and I used it to haul landscape supplies. As we talked about before, when the landscape supply hauling job kind of went by the wayside, that truck would sit in the summer, and then I would use it in the winter. But I had to do tons of repairs all the time,
Right.
mainly in the fall, or and I've come to realize since I've owned some that truck and some others, and this truck, and if I keep using it, it's fine. I mean, there's normal maintenance stuff, of course,
Right.
but it wants to be used every day. It doesn't want to be I'm gonna get out, start it, drive to work 3 miles away, and then come home
Right.
and park it.
Right.
It's not gonna want 15, 20, 30, 50 miles a week.
Right.
It wants to go. It wants to go.
Yeah.
And I really think that, thanks for reminding me about that. That's another huge thing. The oil filtration, the oil analysis. I mean, the good fuel and fuel additives, driving, go. And Lord knows I do that.
Yeah. No, you do plenty of that. I mean, I completely agree. I think that, like, actually driving your vehicle, and I honestly feel like it's like even outside of diesels too, like combustion engines, they want to get up to temperature and be run there, and the longer you keep them there, the better it is. I mean, my truck, I've found when I was running 4,000 miles a week, the thing was happy as a clam.
Yeah.
Like, it loved it. And it just wants to go. It just wants to run. So yeah, you do the maintenance, it's like, they'll go.
Yeah.
You've seen that. But 2 million miles would be remarkable out of one of these things.
Here's another good thing too, that Lake Speed and Dave's just did some testing on some oil. Did some oil testing on the start and go theory. Like, Dave's been pushing not to idle your truck. You start it and go.
Right.
And everybody, everything conventional tells no, let it warm up for a few minutes and then go.
Right.
So I'm not breaking any news here because it was on Instagram, but 42% more efficient. The oil's 42% better by starting and just going than letting it idle.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's way more fuel dilution. And
what are your thoughts though on, like, because I know Ford says, like, if it's below 0 specifically, they're like, you should at least idle for a few minutes.
Well,
like, because that's I think maybe that was what was missed in that video, was like, obviously, like, when I was hauling too, like, I'd start the truck and pretty much start and go, but like if it was cold and it went to high idle, I would always wait until the RPMs like smoothed out, like I'd give it like 5 minutes and then go.
I don't know, because I mean, that's like listening to that stuff.
Right.
It's the first I've heard of that.
Right. Like the whole, you should just start it up and like immediately.
Yeah, because I've never done that.
No, I haven't either.
I did it today. Just because I found, I was talking about it with somebody yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, let's try it. And it was, 5 degrees in Utah when I was there this morning.
You just fired it up and.
Yeah. And I just fired it up, and I just got my stuff together in the truck, maybe 2 minutes.
Okay.
3 minutes. And
right,
then
but
left.
you let it at least sit for like a few minutes too. I mean, I don't know. I guess that's.
It wasn't purposeful.
Right.
It was just getting situated.
Right. No, and I feel like that's fine. I personally think I like to give my truck a couple minutes while I'm getting situated, but like, I'm not letting it sit for 10 or 15, you know what I mean? Even when it's cold, like it was -5 here a few weeks ago, and I'd started up, but definitely no more than 10, I don't know. It's,
always plug it in too.
Plug it in.
I always plug it in. If it's, if I'm, let me qualify that. If I'm somewhere where I have an outlet,
okay,
I will always plug it in unless it's in a garage.
Okay.
Always. Even if it's, okay, in the summer, of course I don't, but the fall and winter, early spring.
Yeah.
Late winter, early spring, always plug it in if it's like below 40.
Okay.
And I think that helps a lot too. The oil just gets moving through there a little quicker on the startup.
Yeah, it's already a little bit warmer.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's good to know.
Yeah, that, and a couple of things I forgot real quick.
Yeah.
It had the original starter on it too.
Wow.
And so, but when I did the redid the upper oil pan like we talked about. So that was, almost 800,000 miles.
Right.
Maybe a little over 800 when I redid that. So that had the original starter until then. So I didn't know if that was important for people because that's a pretty big wear.
No, that's a starter's definitely a wear item. What about like your alternator?
Alternator, one went a few years ago, and I just had them replace both.
Okay.
So
you have the dual alternator set up on yours.
Yeah, but those are not original, but they.
So you've done 3 alternators total, in.
No, just 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
because they were original. One went.
Oh, and then they replaced that one.
I replaced them both at the same time.
Oh, you replaced them both at the same time. Okay.
Because I had all the stuff out.
So
it was really no labor, just to boom, boom.
Just to pop.
So I was
in.
like, might as well while we're in there, instead of that one going the next week and then have all that labor to take everything out again.
Right.
That's another thing I try to do is
like
try to
batch
maximize.
Repairs.
Yeah, try to maximize. Like Bob, my service advisor at Grapponi, he knows now. I don't even have to say it anymore. If they're doing something, is like, oh, we're taking this, and this off, you might want to consider changing this, because he knows I'm going to ask that when he says,
right,
I'm doing this, and I'm going to say, well, what else are you taking off? What can we get at?
Right.
And then
while you're in there.
Yes.
Right.
Because he'll tell me that, okay, if we don't do it, this will be a 5-hour job.
Right.
But all the labor's done. So if we do it, it's just the price of the part.
Right.
So, to me, that's just makes complete common sense. To do that.
What about power steering? Like
I've never done anything with it.
Have you ever replaced the fluid or just?
No.
Wow, that's crazy. So there's an original power steering pump and steering rack.
Yep.
That's impressive.
The only thing that they changed on the power steering once was I don't know I apologize for not knowing, but there's a piece on the steering column that they adjust sometimes when they do the alignment.
Okay.
There's a piece for the inside here somewhere.
Yeah, inside the steering box.
That part's been replaced.
Okay.
But the fluid, no. To be honest, the brake fluid, I don't even know if that's been replaced. If they do that when they do brakes, then yes, it has. If they don't, then no, it hasn't. But it's never leaked.
Wow.
I did transmission lines when I did the transmission. Didn't have to. They were fine, but I was like, might as well. Got 2-year warranty, so. And they're in there, and it was no extra labor because they were all coming out anyway.
Right.
Because all this stuff was coming out, and same with the secondary. So I wanted to replace the radiator because I wanted it to run cooler.
Right.
And I said, why don't we just do the secondary and the condenser as well? Well, because it's all coming out.
Right.
So it's just the price of the part to put it back in, and they'll be fresh. Everything would be fresh, and it can run as cool as possible, and
right. Good to go.
Yeah. But
serpentine belt. Do you place that regularly, or what?
Not regularly when they tell me it needs it. And I think I've only done it once, maybe twice.
Twice in 900.
And I did the oil, the water pump. I did last year sometime, so that was still good.
Right.
But when they replaced the engine, I put a new one of those on.
Okay.
I think it came with one.
Okay.
It came with one. So I took my one that was fairly new.
Yeah.
And so I have that in my garage. So if this one goes, I have
you can replace it.
It's only got, I say only because it has so many miles. I'll say it's only got 70,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
And that was the first one of those I did. I never did that before, and that
right.
was 700 something thousand miles.
Man, that is crazy. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time, Derek. I really appreciate it, and thank you for sharing this. I mean, this is super impressive. It's amazing just doing basic maintenance, how many miles you can get out of one of these things. But I appreciate you stopping by and doing the video, and stoked to see how this thing's going, and hopefully getting to the 2 million mile mark on this truck.
That'd be great.
You'll get there. So anyway, for you, the viewer, thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, definitely drop them below, and the two of us will try to get back to you in a timely fashion. Thank you very much. This is Power Stroke Maintenance. We'll see you next time.